bringing you inside the USL Championship and League One.
Segmer's got there, Marquinhos! He's been knocking on the door! He knocks it down!
Diving into all the biggest stories and top headlines.
You are ripping and roaring today.
This is USL All Access.
It's almost impossible to recreate that level of magic.
With Mike Watts and Devon Kerr on SiriusXM FC.
Welcome, everyone, to a championship-winning edition of USL All Access. This week, we'll chat about award season. We'll chat, of course, about the final. Juan Tejada joins us, the MVP of the game. Head coach James Chambers is on as well. There's plenty of other news, including some player transactions, the move of Miami FC south. It'll all come up next week in our season finale. But this show, Championship Central, with Devon Kerr, Mike Watts, Emmett's at the controls. Dev, you and I coming off a wonderful weekend in Colorado Springs. Truly a remarkable performance by the Switchbacks. Rhode Island, fairy tale run, but ultimately fall short 3-0. Tejada in the 22nd, Enriquez in the 42nd, Damas in the 53rd, all she wrote.
That's got to be the most controlled and balanced performance that I've seen in a USL Championship Final in quite some time, Mike. I went back every single year and started thinking about, okay, well, who was good at what moments and things of that nature. And that's what I came to is it was moments, right? You know, we had, whether it was the Charleston Battery in Phoenix last year, there were so many back and forths in that heavyweight title fight. San Antonio, even though they capped it off against Louisville was in that game for a long period of time. And basically every single season that I went back, I thought, wow, you know, there were just too many things exchanged. Colorado Springs was in the driver's seat from start to finish. They were incredible and not just balanced in this performance, Mike. I'm curious to see what James Chambers thinks, but to me, this was one of the best performances in terms of start to finish in a 90-minute period that I've seen out of them maybe all season long.
Yep. Colorado Springs dealt with injuries to Delence Pierre and Yosuke Hanya in the first half, able to overcome that. Christian Herrera, a couple of really good saves in the second half. Rhode Island on this occasion, they weren't bad. The third goal, everyone's forward on a set piece trying to change the dynamic, and it ends up Damas alone for 70 yards running in on Coque Vegas. They didn't get destroyed by any measure. 3-0 probably does them a bit of a disservice on the day, doesn't it?
Oh, respectfully, I would disagree with you. I felt that, look, we can sit here. We have the ability to play Monday morning quarterback. You can acknowledge the fact that we discussed multiple tactical orientations in terms of personnel for Rhode Island leading into the match. Mm-hmm. Whether or not they got it wrong, I want to stay away from that for a second. I just felt like the energy and emotion wasn't matched. They didn't compete. I do think tactics, like, they lacked in certain areas, but for the first half, they were non-existent on that field. They got run off the pitch. That simple. The second half, I do think that they came back into it with the changes that Cano Smith made, but there were still too many mistakes, very uncharacteristic for a team that, you know, I use the word relevance for their performances throughout the season. In order to do that, you know, you're organized and things like that, and they didn't have it on the course of the night, which was, again, it's way far away from that quality identity that they had set where they were always right there within striking distance.
Yeah, I mean, regrettably, Albert Diqua was a complete non-factor in this game.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest ones for me. There are 7-1-4 in 12 previous matches where those two, J.J. Williams and Albert Diqua, started together. There are 8 goal contributions, 4 goals and 4 assists split between the two. But whether it was in a starting roles together or even the performances where they didn't start together, those two don't have a joint goal contribution all season long.
Incredible, isn't it?
It's very clear that they are extremely talented, that they are a necessity for this team, but they struggled to find a way to get them both on the same page at the same time, and I just personally felt that wasn't the right decision.
Yeah. J.J. Williams, Albert Diqua did not, as you mentioned, combine for a goal in any of the 38 games. On field, 1,075 minutes. Let's call it essentially 12 games worth of minutes. They were plus 13 this year, although that tended at the end of the year when the entire team was playing better. when they were not on the field together, one, the other, or neither, which is essentially 26 full games plus 4 in goal difference. So they were substantially better in theory with both on the field, but they weren't scoring together.
Just go back to the Eastern Conference Final and look at the masterclass defensive performance that was against the Charleston Battery, releasing J.J. Williams to have his presence up top and dropping Albert Dequa down underneath into a false 9 and running the midfield for the Charleston Battery off the pitch. That's where those stats come into play.
Right.
Again, the law of averages, though, is that great, you were able to do it in that game. You were able to do it in that game. The hope long-term for Connell Smith and Rhode Island is that they turn the corner, and now you're getting on both sides of the ball where goals and assists are being picked off left and right, as well as their ability to eliminate attacking options going the other way.
Yep. We'll chat with James Chambers and Juan Tejada about the game plenty over the next hour. A 3-0 win for Colorado Springs. Congratulations to the Reagan and Widener families. 10th year for the Switchbacks in the league, and they go on to win the whole thing. To the players and staff, an excellent day in Colorado Springs. We're going to chat about major award winners at the end of the show, maybe even give a favorite memory of the final from each of us. It's all coming up next here on USL All Access.
Let's get back to USL All Access on SiriusXM FC with Mike Watts and Devon Kerr.
Welcome back to USL All Access on this Tuesday night, wrapping up the USL Championship Final. Colorado Springs, a 3-0 victory over Rhode Island FC. Miss a part of the show, it's available on the USL YouTube page with stunning, 460 video. Devin, is that as good as we do?
My P goes higher than that. I'm not 1080, but I think I broke the century mark.
I'm reading the comments. I've seen the comments. Okay. Also available on the SiriusXM app. All right. We mentioned him earlier, the 37-year-old Irish manager in his first season as the head coach in Colorado Springs. 3 years prior to that as an assistant to Brendan Burke and then Stevie Hogan. Spent time in the league at Bethlehem Steel and a sterling career overseas as well. Championship winner, we can say now. James Chambers joins us. James, Chambo. You did it, man. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
You and I spoke very briefly on the field. I felt like you had more important things to do in that moment. I think the takeaway from both of us was that was a really clean performance in a game that almost begs for a little bit of tussle. It felt like you guys from the beginning had a really good grip on this final.
Yeah, I know we spoke briefly. I felt like I've watched it back a little bit, and I felt like the performance was really good for the final because obviously the occasion, the magnitude of what's on the line can come into play a lot with players and all that sort of stuff. But I thought they handled it extremely well and put in a really, really good performance, which I was proud of them for.
Scoring as early as you did, bagging a goal 22 minutes in, then another before halftime. Did that sort of take out some of the sting or the nerves of the occasion, or did you sort of feel adrenaline the whole way?
No, I think we kind of preach on starting fast and starting with intensity, and I think we did that with the energy as soon as we walked out. I think for warm-ups and then when we walked out for the game itself was exceptional. I think the players fed off that, and then Yosa's chance 35 seconds in, I think, is the moment that settles us down from Hyro's little bit of brilliance. And I think it put a little bit of fear into Rhode Island. They were like, oh, okay. And I know they had the free kick a little bit later on. But ultimately, I think it gave us a good platform to then go and say, okay, we can just perform now.
Coach, I want to talk about from the Tejada's goal in the 22nd minute until halftime. Great start, energy. You talked about quality for a final overall. But there's also a 24-minute stretch where not only do you guys score 2 goals, one just before halftime, you also picked up 2 injuries. What was the conversation like on the sideline when you had to sub Duke Laquan for Delence Pierre and then bring in Quenzi for Yosuke Hanya on the outside?
Yeah, obviously, look, Duke was really unfortunate not to start the game. And that was a form decision because Delence had played so well the week before, and also from a physical standpoint, Delence offers something a little bit different from a height side to things with regards to set pieces and stuff. And ultimately, it was a straight swap. So Duke went in there, slotted like he'd started the game. And obviously Yost pops his hamstring on the second goal, which is very unfortunate for him in the final, being so bright throughout the start of the game, I felt, and obviously the assist for Juan. And then Quincy was just an option that we felt we could use him there, because Juan was performing really well at the 10, and rather than bouncing him wide so early, we felt it was the right solution to do. And ultimately then we get in a half time and it gives us a chance to have more information to the players.
Obviously, a ton of experience at the head coaching level this year. That's new for you. You've had stuff on the sidelines before, and certainly the tenured career as a player. I was running through my mind trying to think in USL Championship history where I had experienced an opening 45 minutes. The final changes it, but an opening 45 minutes where team is up 2-0, but two players playing it so well had actually come off. Had you had experience with that at the head coaching level yet? And if not, was that something that you guys had walked through previously of, okay, if this happens, we can do this. If this happens, we can do that. That conversation is probably going on the 70th minute. So are you just adjusting in the moment?
Yeah, I think it's like, look, you get a lot of stuff that's thrown at you in the game, and it depends on what the opponent's doing and how you're performing. So I think the big thing for me is being able to adapt and lean on the staff beside me to go ahead, like, this is what I'm thinking, this is where I'm feeling, and it's a discussion, which I've said before in the past. And ultimately, we have a lot of players that are able to step in and perform, and the level doesn't drop. And that's ultimately why I think we've been able to be in this position. I've also been in the game last year when I had to step in for Hogan and had two players sent off. So it's new territory, but it's all just trying to adapt and overcome it and figure it out and not be so flustered in the moment.
The dagger that was for Rhode Island, Ronaldo Damas scores the third in the 53rd minute. Ironically, you and I had a conversation 2 days prior. We were running through tactics, and I specifically referenced the 9 with Damas and the high line of confrontation that could be for Rhode Island. You know, the idea of him getting behind and stretching it. We joked a little bit like, yeah, he's got a good first step, but long-term speed, don't necessarily know how that would play out. He's not lightning quick. When you're on the sideline and you see him streaking and all of a sudden Rhode Island's coming right at him, were you screaming, get it together? Are there words that you can share with us that are allowed to be on this broadcast that you were dictating to him?
No, I was pretty calm and composed in that moment. I think that's been a big thing that I've taken, particularly over the last couple of months, is to be a little bit more composed and calm. That comes with experience. So in that moment, it was like, I feel like he's going to be able to get there and get his shot off. And Halstead did such a good job of recovering. I think if it was an extra 2 yards, he'd probably get some sort of contact or impact Ronaldo getting the shot. But ultimately, look, Ronaldo has the guts of like 100 yards to go there. Let's say it's called 80. You have to be in control of the ball, obviously at high speed, and then ultimately when you get there, you got to put it away, and you've so much time to think about it. So yes, it was the longest 1v1 I've ever seen in history, but his composure to finish it off is exceptional.
I'm going to get one more in here to take us back to the journey before Mike Watts gets us into the idea of what the identity of the team was. Just the idea of you being the main guy on the sideline, right? You guys all ventured from the East Coast to the West Coast. Brendan Burke was the head coach at that point in time. It was you, it was Hoagie, it was Alan McCann. There have been a couple of faces that have stayed with you guys, but when Brendan left, Stephen Hogan initially takes over, and then you decide to be the one that comes in there. Just walk us through the thought process of how Stephen Hogan was going to become more of the face in the front office, and you were going to be the leader from the sidelines.
Yeah, I think that was the plan. Kind of why I left the Union Academy was to be in this position, and maybe it'd come a little bit earlier than we'd all anticipated. But the reality was these were the roles that we had envisioned and wanted to be in, and Hoagie's always wanted to be on the business side of things, but felt the experience of being a head coach would be beneficial. And I think that's huge because he went through what I went through at the start of the season, so we both knew how one another was feeling and where we were at from that standpoint. And ultimately, I think that benefited us. So I had the staff with me and all that, but I had someone who went through that. So that does help. And ultimately, I'm blessed to be in the position I'm in. I don't really, look, we set out to win a championship. There's no doubt about that. But obviously, in your first year, do you really feel like you're going to be able to do it? You want to go close, of course, but to get it done and to get it done in the fashion we did on Saturday, that was extra special, to be honest.
You know, you and I had spoken about something similar to this about year one in the lead up to the game. Winning this championship, you said Thursday it'd be hard to ever replicate this group of men, and you pointed toward the locker room ever again. The way they took you in, the way they took on concepts, and the way they carried themselves. Describe the feeling in the locker room with them after that performance.
Yeah, it was special. Like, it was brilliant because it obviously looked at the trophy and the cameras and all that sort of stuff are there, and the television. Your families are there. You're obviously delighted because your families live and breathe it with you. You go home in a good mood or a bad mood, depending on how the game goes. So they're always surrounded by football and living and breathing it. I know the players' families are like that, and the staff's families are like that. But then you come back in and everybody's winding down, they're happy and they're still celebrating. But to be in that locker room and be in that moment with the players, seeing how they've applied themselves all year and get rewarded for it, that was really, really special. That was really, really special. That will live with me for a long, long time. And I'm just really fortunate that it's worked out like this.
James Chambers with us, head coach for Colorado Springs, USL Championship winner in 2024. You described hearing the phrase defense wins championships for the first time this year, which, to be fair, fits given that it's more of an American comment, and you played and coached with Brendan Burke as long as you did. Colorado Springs was sort of known for this run and gun, right? It turns out this ends up being tied for the best defensive performance in a playoff run in league history. When I thought of you as a player, I thought far more of setting tempo, of setting a tone, of defensive prominence. Can you sort of describe to me the extent to which you've sort of allowed this team to mold around your personality and style of play throughout this year?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it my personality as such. I think it's a case of like where were we when I took over, and what needed to happen, where did it need to go? Did I feel that? And ultimately, like, the reality is you can score 70 or 80 goals, but clean sheets is what gets you more points on the board and puts you in a better position to win games. That being said, I don't want us to be a team that has performances like we did against Vegas. They're necessary and they happen throughout the course of the season. There's no doubt about that. But it's a case of like when they do happen, it can't be we just fold like a deck of cards. There has to be something that gives us a platform and a foundation to go and get the result if we're not playing that well. And ultimately, that's why we ended up in the final, because we were able to do that and the players were able to apply themselves in that manner. If we're trying to go out and have a shootout every week, maybe we play well and we get 3 goals or 4 goals, but maybe we don't. We concede 4. So I think it's finding the balance for us. Really pleased that we've set that foundation now. Again, I'm not sitting here with like Baresi and Maldini at the back. Like, that's not the case. We just want to have a good foundation that gives us a good structure to go forward and express ourselves.
Yeah, I bet you're going to say that directly to Matt Mahoney's face, are you?
He's better than those two.
There was a story that unfortunately we didn't get an opportunity to share. You and I shared some minutes on Wednesday prior to the final, and we talked about the idea of taking that foundation that you referenced, right, that you guys all brought from Philly and that you brought together, and all you knew was Hogan and Burke, right? That Brendan Burke and Stephen Hogan, and how you wanted to expand upon that, your experience as a head coach, and how currently you've already had some relationships develop around the United States. You also shared with me that in the offseason, you're going to get some opportunities to go and broaden your horizons even further on the coaching front. I didn't get to share that. We didn't get the opportunity to say that on the CBS broadcast, hoping maybe you could walk the listeners through what has taken place so far to help you and what looks like in the future to continue that growth.
Yeah, like, look, when you go 0-5, like, you don't sit in the room and think, oh, here we go, like, this is amazing. Like, there's a lot of people out there that I spoke to and got advice from. A lot of people in the USL, like some really good people, some really good coaches that were willing to pick up the phone and say, hey, man, like, this, that, and the other. Obviously, people at the MLS, like Jim, Pat, all those type of people, BJ Callahan, they were terrific with me. And then I have some people back in Ireland, like Damien Duff, I spoke to, Stephen Bradley, I spoke to at the start of the year. So I've been fortunate to have, I wouldn't go as far or as deep as to call them mentors, but people that I can lean on and get a little bit of advice from that have been there and done it. And I think it's important that you do that, because we don't have all the answers ourselves, and little things can tweak something in your brain to go, oh, you know what, he's making a lot of sense there, and if I do this or do that, it will apply a little bit better to me.
James Chambers joining us. He's the head coach for Colorado Springs. You mentioned having your family with you for this experience, and I kind of want to go back to that for a moment. I think one of my favorite backstories of this final, I think Al McCann told me about it first, was that you essentially, like half awake, drove your way over to Stevie Hogan's house with his family, and he didn't know that his family was coming. from Ireland. Apparently, they did the same thing to you the night before the final. Can you sort of speak to it? I feel like I spoke with Lee Desmond earlier this year and a handful of players throughout the league where I don't think people realize how much you give up to be in America. Maybe the opportunity is greater. Maybe it's the right moment. But to have your family there with you, can you describe that?
Yeah, it was truly special. Like it really was, and I felt obviously I know Stephen's family quite well, and unfortunately Alan's family couldn't come out, but it was a case of they were coming in and the opportunity to surprise him for what is it's a big occasion. That's the reality of it. Was special, and then I was like Friday night I was at home with my wife, and my brother and sister showed up at the door. So now I get that whack, and I'm like surprised, shocked, everything. But obviously we have a game ready the next day to get for. So the reality was, it was as soon as they get in and all the emotions calm down, it was a case of I felt we would do well in the game. I was hoping we would win, and for them to be here with my wife and experience it together as a three was truly special. And it sounds cliche, but it was a perfect weekend, and I don't think the reality of it is set in. And look, my why is personal for me. It's to make people proud that aren't here, and ultimately it was really special and really perfect as a weekend. My brother was saying if Carlsberg did weekends, it would be that. So,
well put. And I've got 4 siblings. If they showed up at my door, I'd be terrified. But that's neither here nor there. Shame though. I remember asking Troy Lesane this when when New Mexico went to Minnesota in the Open Cup, and sort of what was the big aha moment. And he said it was seeing the New Mexico logo in that big manual scoreboard, because it was almost a concrete example. We're here, we made it. What's the minute memory that you think will stick with you most from Saturday?
I don't know, to be honest. I think the first thing for me is I said it already, but I'm really pleased with the performance and how the players, their maturity in the final, which is very, very difficult to do, to play in a final. I've been there personally years ago. I played the occasion, not the game, and it was absolutely horrendous. So spoke to some individuals about that this week, but I feel like if we take it back the week before, I feel like to get to the Western Conference final, to have a performance that wasn't great, but to win and hold something tangible, a trophy, and lift it, that gives you a bit more belief, and it gives you, yes, we've done it. Okay, I want more of that taste and that feeling. That's ultimately what I think has given us a little bit more, and we wanted to be better this weekend.
Probably going to have to think a couple of weeks further back to get this answer, maybe even a few months. You joked with Mike Watts, I think it was sometime around August. I've spoken to Stephen Hogan about it as well, where I became personally a little bit boisterous on this show and some other areas about my thoughts on your quality of play in the best of ways. Not looking for acknowledgement, but I had a feeling for a long point in time, based upon what you guys were putting out, that you were a title contending team, that I thought you guys were going to come out of the West. At what point in time, given the body of work that your team was putting out, as well as what you were seeing around the league, did you kind of look around and go, okay, we have what it takes to go and get this done?
Yeah, I think earlier in the season we went to New Mexico. We went to Vegas on the Tuesday, New Mexico on the Saturday, and we had a really good performance. We lost in the last minute from a penalty, but we were excellent, and they were top of the league. And we said if that's top of the league, we're there or thereabouts, and we can definitely be in that conversation. But ultimately, it was game after game, and we had some situations this year where we couldn't quite get into second place, which is what we were trying to do because New Mexico were so far ahead. But I feel like from Monterey on, we were just in a really good vein of form. We were in a good spot, and we were getting more and more confidence from decent performances and good results. Obviously, the SAC one, where you finish second then, and you've been trying to get that all year, that really hits home and gives you a lot of belief, because that was a goal and a focus for us. And ultimately we got that. So there's no real one moment. I feel like we played 38 games and we learned from every single one of them, and we had a portfolio that we could lean upon if it was needed.
I love you acknowledging to the group that you never set out to play a regular season and see what happened in the playoffs. This was always going to be a 38-game season for you guys. Kudos. That's a solid one. A fun one for me on the way out before Mike Watts sends us adieu. I've been told by a little birdie to ask the following question. I have no premise as to what it is. I apologize ahead of time. This is what happens when we're all friendly behind the scenes. And I quote, did the lads ever find Mary? I'm supposed to ask you.
The lads, Mary was here on Saturday at 1:30. She was in the locker room, and they hoisted Mary extremely high in the air.
That sounds like an elongated conversation with Adult Waters off air to get the backstory for everything.
Mary is the USL trophy.
Oh, look at that! When did you name it that?
It was a couple of weeks ago. We had a bit of a storytelling to do, and ultimately, look, came up with it, and the boys bought into it, liked it. It was to try and just have a little bit of fun with it and enjoy it, and it worked. It worked.
It did work. James Chambers with us, head coach for Colorado Springs. 12 pubs of championship, 12 pubs of Christmas. Is that how this ended in Colorado Springs on Saturday? Here's the problem with a 10 a.m. kickoff. Everyone, they have to come in early. Oh, this is really difficult. And that may or may not be true. But it also means the sun didn't go down for at least 7 hours or something after you guys won the title.
Yeah. And look, I know I got some flack the week before for the kickoff time, but that's why I said it was an absolute disgrace, because we would have had all day to enjoy ourselves if we had won it. So
yeah.
Well, obviously, you were kind enough to show up for this interview after finding Mary with looks like a clean cut, little hair gel, and maybe a little trim on the beard. I don't know what was going on when we showed up.
Way to go, Mountain Man.
No, yeah. Look, at this stage of the season, it's a case of why fix what's not broken. So it's a case of, like, we were winning. I looked a mess. The beard is long, the hair is long. Just stay in this zone, be in this place, and let things continue on. So it's time for the trim.
Well, we look forward to you looking like Sasquatch this time next year when you hoisted Find Mary again. James, appreciate the time. Wishing you all the best over this offseason. Congratulations again from all of us and to the entire organization. Brilliant run.
Guys, thanks a million. Really appreciate it.
If you missed any part of the interview, it's available tomorrow on the USL YouTube page, where you can see just the before and after picture of James before and after a trim. It's also on the SiriusXM app, where you don't get that glory. Back in a moment with a look at the awards around the league next.
Giving insight to all the biggest moments in Championship and League One. This is USL All Access on SiriusXM FC with Mike Watts and Devon Kerr.
Welcome back to USL All Access on this Tuesday night. Of course, if you missed our interview with James Chambers, it's available on the SiriusXM app and also on the USL YouTube page. As promised, the 27-year-old Panamanian spark plug, beloved in Tampa Bay over his 4 seasons there, a year in Indy, came to Colorado Springs last year and scores the game winner in the championship final on Saturday, 22nd minute against Rhode Island. Juan Tejada joins us on the show. Juan, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, appreciate, tight turnaround from the final to keep doing media, but appreciate you adding us as a stop.
No, thank you guys for having me here.
Overjoyed for you. Congratulations on winning the title. Beyond the goal, what are sort of the memories that are bubbling for you right now?
I think accomplishing this trophy with all this group, I think it was a special group, and it's like we're still processing what the game. It's been 1-2 days, and we had a very fun celebrations together. So these are memories that maybe they're not gonna repeat as much. So like you have to really enjoy them, and we did for sure. And I love these guys. I love this staff, and it's amazing to accomplish what we did with all of them.
Some of your Irish coaches have described the 12 pubs of winning a trophy, so hopefully you had a chance to stop by with that. I met you on the field for the first time in person post-game. You're with the MVP trophy. You thanked your family, including, I guess there's a birthday wish that's soon to come here, as you receive that award. Describe that feeling, that moment in your life, in your career, to receive that trophy surrounded by some of the people you love the most.
Yeah, for sure. My wife and well, now my son, he's about to be 1 year old tomorrow. They've
Feliz
been so supportive.
cumpleaños.
They've been so supportive. We've been together, me and my wife, since Eckerd College days, which, 8 years ago, maybe. Hopefully she doesn't get mad, but yeah, she's been through the ups and downs. Tampa, Indy, now Colorado. She's been moving with me, and she's never said anything bad. So supportive, and to get that trophy, that's kind of like a reward for all these years. It's important, and I wanted to share it with her, and yeah, it's she's very, very happy as well, so it's good.
Juan, we'll get to the Eckerd College days in a minute. For people that don't know your background, the IMG to Eckerd to the Tampa Bay Rowdies, and you spent a couple of seasons there, most notably the 2021 final. Your guys' team, you won the regular season, you won the Eastern Conference before coming up just short against Orange County in the final. Whether this is on the personal side or you related it to the team, how many feelings were left over from that 21 final that kind of spilled into this run and maybe sparked some emotion to help you guys get a result?
Yeah, it's part of football. You win, you lose sometimes, and unfortunately, we lost that final 2021. It was a very good group as well, and coming into this final, I myself being more experienced now, I knew I had to be, calm. And Chambers always said it, it's don't play the occasion, play the game. He's been saying it since the beginning of the playoffs, and I think we prepare each game throughout the season the same. We want to get the 3 points, we want to advance in the playoffs, and we never let the occasion get the best of us. We always play the game. We always, never. We never got nervous. We were never, I don't know if that's the word, but too excited to win. Sometimes you think too much about the result that you forget to play the game, and that's what we did. And I think that's what ultimately led us to winning the final. But yeah, answering to your question about the feelings, for sure you have kind of like, I don't know how you say in English, like a nail that you want to, you know, yeah, like it's something that I wanted that trophy for a while, so it was kind of not like a revenge, but it's very nice to have it and be the first one. Speedy Williams has 4 now, so it's that's a crazy accomplishment.
We're all chasing Speedy. Juan Tejada joining us on USL All Access, although he'll be the first to say, not that fast, but that's neither here nor there. Juan, you trialed with the Rowdies. Like, I feel like it's a pretty common story for players in this league where there could have been a moment of self-doubt or a moment where it may not have worked out. Sort of describe that early feeling in Tampa Bay. And I think the fans fell in love with you pretty quickly, which must have helped with job security.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I was out of college, played PDL, did some good seasons, and I was fortunate to be invited to trial by in Tampa Bay Rowdies, and I had to find my way through it. I think a lot of us professionals here in the game, like you have to fight, you have to work hard. Sometimes you're gonna be doubting yourself. Sometimes people are gonna close doors, even though you have the talent, even though you have the hard work. So you just have to keep pushing until it happens. Like the final, like I lost in 2021, but that's not a reason to give up. And in those trials in Tampa Bay, I remember, um, unfortunately, they said they had too many internationals for my spot, and I just kept pushing, and pushing, and I was invited to preseason, and some goals in the preseason ended up, them offering me a contract, and that's the start of my career, which is what I wanted since I was a kid, probably 7, 8 years old. So now accomplishing a trophy with Colorado, it's you see back to everything that it was worth it to to suffer all the moments that you also enjoyed, but everything at the end, it's worth it for sure.
Well, I think people would probably look and go, wow, the MVP of the USL Championship Final, the goal scorer, 2-game winners, back-to-back goals, and think this has been their guy all season long. For you, at the end of the year, that wasn't the case, right? You played 42 minutes in the final 4 matches prior to the remaining 3, and that included one in the postseason. And I want to talk positionally how that played out for you. Having the opportunity and the pleasure to see your journey throughout the USL Championship in a system. We've seen you in the 2-9s, right? We've seen you in 2-10s. We've never really seen you as that out and out 10 the playmaker from the starting role, and certainly not with the switchbacks. I had an extended conversation with James Chambers coming into this game about the profile of player that he needed in there in order to have success. When the team sheet came out, told me your name, I went and talked to him, and Chambo said, this is the guy that's going to get it done from us. Just talk about the evolution at the end of the year and then solidifying yourself into an unnatural position for you come the USL Championship Final.
Yeah, I think I wasn't performing the way I wanted, and I mean I could feel it. You'll say I was lacking a bit of confidence or sharpness in the field, and you know, luckily we played Sacramento last game of the season. We were fighting for either the 5th place or the 2nd place, and luckily I found the ball in the box and pushed it in, and I think that goal gave me the confidence I needed into the playoffs. I spoke to Chambers as well, and he said like that moment kind of like light a fire in me as well, and the first 2 games of the playoffs, I think the times I came in, I did good. I helped the team. I had some impact. Um, I was not expecting starting against Las Vegas. I know we had some guys leaving. Just because, like you said, I was not playing a lot of minutes. I was coming in the bench late. So, him giving me that trust, he spoke to me and told me, you've been impacting the team since that goal especially, and we always trust in you. So just go on there and show like how good you are, because, people don't know how good you are in this league, and in Las Vegas, got the goal, 1-0 win, a hard fought win. Like that was a all the guys really. It was a team effort, and in the final as well, getting the first goal, it's crucial. So I was so excited to help the team in that way, and give back to the people that trusted me.
Let's talk more about some of those goals. So you mentioned the lone goal in the 1-0 victory against Vegas in the Western Conference Final. Although you guys beat Rhode Island FC 3-0 in the USL Championship Final, your opening goal is considered the game winner. Now 9 goals in all competitions for Colorado Springs, 8 game winners, and your 9th goal was actually a game-tying goal that then helped you get a result. What is it when the lights are on and everything's thriving, you seem to hit the back of the net for one of the biggest moments a team needs?
I mean, if I could explain, I don't know. It's there's no formula for it. I think I like to sniff those moments. I sniffing in and around the box. So, um, like I said, it's I did not know about that stat that you're mentioning, and I think my friends and my wife is saying, it's kind of crazy. The 9 goals, 8 times the game winners. I'm just happy, like I said, to help the team this way. It's important, and I just want to say it's not only me, it's the whole team, but it's nice, yeah.
Watch, just so that we're clear, that's also a player, and behind the scenes walks into the locker room and looks around and goes, that's right, boys.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Who's buying dinner?
The eminently humble Juan Tejada joining us here on USL All Access. Juan, you came here a decade ago. IMG Academy, then Eckerd, as we've sort of spoken about, then the pro game. You've had the pleasure of playing in front of packed houses often. What happened here in Colorado Springs was pretty incredible. Sold out. The energy was excellent. We loved being there for it for sure. Can you describe the way soccer has changed in this country in your time here?
For sure, it's amazing. We've been talking. I talked to a lot of players in the league that I've played with, and I think Widener Field, it's an incredible venue, and to have it packed in this final, the fans have been amazing throughout the season, but just that ambience, that environment in the final of a USL, it's amazing. I think the owners have been doing amazing to create this environment here, and I hope it can extend. It is extending. USL clubs are growing massively. You can see soccer is taking the big stage in here in the US every time now with the World Cup too, and every time I have more players from outside contacting me about playing here. It's a really good market, and um, now is the time to capitalize on it. I think the league is growing a lot, like I said, and we have just to continue in that way. The quality of the stadiums, of the players, of the staff, of the coaches, as it's just growing every day, and I think it's gonna be some great years for U.S. soccer.
Juan, your journey, I think in the modern world that we live in, excuse me, people look and go, I got to be the best guy on my academy team. I've got to be a homegrown player for whatever it is. Get the pro deal right away. I got to go play in Division One. I'm very adamant about the fact that there are so many different paths to be able to take to get to your desired level. You went to a Division II school. My brother went there as well. You get to Eckerd, you light it up. You finish sixth in points and goals all time. You've led your team in points. You've been the all-league guy. And then you kind of have to make those steps. In terms of all of the changes that you've seen around this country in soccer, and you've experienced it firsthand, what would you say to the young kids that are coming up through the ranks and trying to follow a path to reach professional soccer stardom as well?
I think to the kids, enjoy. I think that's the most important thing, even though it sounds like a cliche, and of course is to work harder than people. Like you said, I went to a D2 school. I don't think it's not people. Everyone wants to go to a D1 school or wants to go pro right away nowadays. So going to a D2 school, I remember just doing extras every single day. Like I was so focused on being a professional player. That's what I wanted. I know you don't have a ton of visibility in D2, especially as D1. So I had to try and stand out other ways, play PDL, go trials, and I ended up just pushing and opening, forcing the door open. Trying to step my foot in the league, and thankfully now I've been here for a while, and hopefully I can have a longer career. The work never stops. It's every day. There's so many kids that want to be professional players, and the quality of the kids now it's growing. Like I said, the soccer here it's growing. So kids are every day more talented, and they want to take your jersey, take your spot. So you just have to keep fighting, keep evolving, keep adapting, and keep working hard.
The legendary coach Jim DeNoble, who really put Eckerd College on the map, actually won a U.S. Open Cup with the Kickers back in the late 80s. Actually was the only Florida team to win it up until Orlando City recently. I mentioned my brother went there. He was in their Eckerd College program in the mid-90s. I went there a couple of times for some staycations for soccer and things like that. You would do your visits and things of that nature. I remember, speaking of extras, not only the great pool and high diving board up front, I remember the main cafeteria having the most glorious ice cream machine. Was that still there when you were in school?
No, I don't think so.
Gone.
The glorious ice cream
Gone.
machine, no, it
Yeah, they
wasn't.
had to get they were smart to get it away from the meal plan. The athletes were
Yeah,
getting in
for
the
sure,
way.
for sure. I don't know if I would be here if that was there. Big ice cream fans.
Juan Tejada's with us here on USL All Access. Two quick questions on the way out. Who is your team in Panama?
Who is my
Ooh.
team? You mean in the league? Yeah. I grew up coming up the ranks in Chepo FC. Unfortunately, they disappeared. Financial problems and stuff. If I have to pick a team, it'll be hard for me, but Plaza Amador it's a team of the people, you'll say. It's everybody likes it, supports it. I think the fans are amazing. And that's the team I follow probably the most from Panama.
Had them many
Wow.
times in Champions League. Love it. The Tyro fans are pissed, but that's okay. They deserve
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Close with this. Is there any product in this hair? Is that natural?
It is natural, yeah.
Oh.
Just some water sometimes, some
Oh my
conditioner,
God.
nothing crazy. But
What
yeah,
a guy.
I woke up like this, is what he said.
He is Colorado Springs' least eligible bachelor with the best flow to ever win a USL Championship Final MVP. Juan, congratulations. Enjoy the time off and can't wait to see you guys try and defend the title next year.
Thank you, Matt. Mike,
We're back,
thank you, Evan.
back with more, including a look at the league awards when we come back here on USL All Access.
You're listening to USL All Access on SiriusXM FC. Here are your hosts, Mike Watts and Devon Kerr.
We're back on USL All Access. My apologies to Juan Tejada for not wearing a Switchbacks jersey as we pre-taped his interview separately. That has been handled. I'm good now. All right. With Devon Kerr, Mike Watts. Dev, let's talk about the league awards. They all came out last week. Nick Marcanic, Golden Boot Player of the Year. The finalist for Player of the Year, Taylor Davila, who came into Louisville. Year one there, Jorge Hernandez. Surprise?
For the finalists, no. I think it's very fair. Taylor Davila, while he doesn't fit into my squad and how I would play, I think a lot of people might argue that, given his quality, just not a personal preference of mine. Jorge Hernandez could really fit in a couple of different places, but no question whatsoever why they went with Nick.
The goalkeeper of the year is Eric Dick from Pittsburgh. He also won the Golden Glove. Are you cool with that?
I understand why they did it based upon numbers, the lack of games overall. We talked about this earlier, playing with 6 games left in the less in the regular season compared to Danny Vitiello. Danny Vitiello had a goals per against average better in the games that weren't a shutout. I thought his saves that he made were more explosive. I thought he was more integral in a squad that were very similarly structured. It just found a way to have more of an impact. I'd vote Danny Vitiello if I had the vote in my book.
Defender of the year was Graham Smith from Charleston. Wins over Jack Gurr and Matt Mahoney, the other 2 finalists. What do you think?
Didn't think Jack Gurr had the best of years, to be honest. Deserved to be a finalist, maybe in some people's eyes. I just want to relate this to Mahoney and Graham Smith. I was good with either. You tell me that it's Graham Smith, I get why. You know, he's clean on the back line, a lot of organization, and I would say he had a ton of moving pieces around him as well. Matt Mahoney, to me, is just, I felt like he was at another level. Mentioned this on the CBS call that he's the only player when it comes to the plus-minus category that's goals gained and goals given up within a lineup. He's the only player in the top 25 that wasn't wearing a Louisville City or Charleston Battery jersey. That's pretty astronomical right there for me. So a key impact piece, Mr. Stability, loved his distribution, and he was lights out in the final, by the way. He would have gotten my vote, but nothing wrong with giving it to Smith.
The young player of the year was Elijah Winder, 6 goals throughout the year. Popmar Boy, the center back at Phoenix, and Ray Serrano, the winger at Louisville, were also up for it. Look, Elijah Winder, a couple of years ago when he broke his leg, I'm not sure anyone knew what to expect out of him moving forward or the pace at which he'd move. Obviously, his brother's gone overseas. Elijah signed a multi-year deal this year, and you have to think part of that was knowing the level he'd put in and what his ceiling is now.
7 years for Ray Serrano, and we're still considering him as a young player of the year candidate.
He's under
his age.
What, 23, 24?
Yeah, it's like something like that. That's also the quality that you get out of the player that was in the Pacific Northwest, right, in the Seattle Sounders Academy. Now 7 years in, thought that not just a career best, but certainly one of the best out of the young players. But it is really, really hard to argue the value that Winder brought to the midfield next to Taylor Davila. You're talking about a player of the year and a guy that was right there, if not better in a lot of moments than Taylor Davila. So I understand why the vote was there.
Dev, the coach of the year was Danny Cruz from Louisville. Eric Quill, who's now the FC Dallas coach. Congratulations. And then, look, Dennis Sanchez in Las Vegas is the only other guy I would have put in this conversation. The historic nature of Louisville City season and what Danny Cruz did to get there, losing his captain in preseason, I'd still go Danny Cruz. Dennis Sanchez absolutely deserving in Vegas, plus 30 year over year.
Yep, I'm on the Dennis Sanchez train. Again, I would say that Eric Quill did a tremendous job, really good foundation there, but gave it a little bump. Danny's historic season in Louisville, it's really difficult to argue against it, especially when you look at just the historical relevance that they brought to that team, to this league, compared to some of the greats that we've seen. They were right there, if not winning a lot of awards that had previously been set by others, breaking records. Dennis Sanchez, for me, not just the job in between the lines, what they did behind the scenes and in such a tight window when he came in so late, probably would have gotten my vote.
Devin, we do have a finale next week, so not saying farewell yet. Favorite moment from the final or from our weekend in Colorado Springs?
Oh, I would say probably, being on the roof in general for the game was really fun. The backdrop was one of the most spectacular things I've ever seen. I'd probably say it was the day before, you teaching me how to use my in-ears as we went through rehearsals and had that beautiful view behind us.
Life-changing stuff. And I would say the Colorado Springs sushi, better than you think. Dev, did you learn anything from this show?
I learned that James Chambers does, in fact, have a comb.
and neither he nor Juan Tejada actually use hair product, just water, which is unbelievable. I learned that I fit this Switchback jersey just as well as James Chambers would. Is that good for him, good for me, or bad for both? That's a story for another time. For Devin, Emmett, Mike, thanks for watching, listening this week. We'll talk to you again for the finale next Tuesday night. So long for now.
This is USL All Access. If you missed any portion of the program, listen back anytime on the SXM app.